All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So appreciate your patience. We're also broadcasting this live on our GoToWebinar software. We've got about 25 folks signed up on that, so good morning to you. The main reason we do that is people can attend virtually, but also there's a recording that we'll post on our YouTube channel, and we'll also have that on our homepage. So if there's a resident that couldn't attend, I know a few folks have already emailed me asking for a recording. We will make that available for you. So if there's any part you have to step out or anybody that missed this talk, please let them know that they'll be recording as well. So appreciate your patience as we set up the virtual aspect. So my name is Eric Hayden. I'm a meteorologist with the Weather Service down the road in Newport. We're going to talk about hurricane preparedness, some things you should focus on, and some things that you should not be paying attention to. If you're not familiar, our office is down the road in Newport. It's the red dot on this map. We do cover Eastern North Carolina. So if you've ever been to places like Greenville, Jacksonville, the Outer Banks, obviously here at Knoll Shores, and also out in the water, the sounds are out to 20 nautical miles. We do forecasts and warnings for those areas as well. So we are your local office. We're one of 122 offices in the whole country. So we've got it highlighted on the map. Yellow is the area we cover. Central North Carolina is covered by the Raleigh office. Wilmington covers down toward the southern part of the state. And like I said, we've got offices all over the country for your local forecast. We have a lot of information to give you. I will wave my hands and tell you the parts you should really pay attention to. This is a part you should pay attention to. Our local website. We really want you following trusted sources of information. There's a tremendous amount of information out there. Some of it is just not accurate. Some of it will make you worry more than you need to. Focus on official sources of information. Like Mr. Jason said, we're not hiding anything. Whatever we put out there is what we think is going to happen. We will let you know in plenty of time when we anticipate a storm impacting our region. Our website is the first place you should pay attention to. Our running joke with that is the weather you love. We're always evolving, Jason. If it's the weather you love, it's weather.gov. So just remember weather.gov. You don't need the www or any of that. You just click on Eastern North Carolina, you'll get our page. I noticed some of you are scanning the QR code. That's fantastic. That will take you to our local page. Save this on your phone. The brochures we have on the table are welcome. You're welcome to take. It's great that you're taking notes, but if you put it on that phone, you're probably going to have it next year or this summer when you might need it. So please save that website. That's where you can find a lot of this information. A lot of information, especially with regards to our website, is on that page itself. On that page, again, weather.gov/Morehead City, or you can scan the QR code. You can find your local forecast, but also severe weather information. For example, if you scroll down on the page, there's an icon that says weather briefings. These are the same things we sent out to Jason. The community can get this information. This is Tropical Storm Elsa. This is last year. Just an example. This is not just hurricane related. If we're anticipating severe weather, winter weather, any type of weather extreme, we send out a briefing to the community, and it is on that page that you can have. So again, weather.gov/Morehead City. Just click on Eastern North Carolina, and if you go from the main page, there's many different ways that you can get there. Social media, we are big on social media. That is a place where we focus what you should pay attention to. I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to work Father's Day evening, the evening shift. So we were talking about a big rain potential this week. I'm hoping I didn't jinx it. I have a big garden of roses. I've done the fertilization. I did weeding and mulching. So I'm all ready for this heavy rain. We posted about the heavy rain. We talk about tropical systems, cold weather, severe weather, day-to-day weather. Social media is a nice place because our website is very good, but it can be information overload. Lots of links, you bookmark, you have to play around with it a little bit. Where social media, we wave our hands around and say, hey, this is what you should really pay attention to with our upcoming weather. And the best way to find that is just search NWS Morehead City, and you will find, we're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. This recording, what we're talking about today, is on YouTube. When we do a briefing to the community, talking about what we expect with the storm. It's not a 30-second, you can scroll by and see something. It's a 5, 10, 15-minute video on what we anticipate with the storm. A lot of our information you can find via social media. So just a show of hands, how many have lived in Knoll Shores or Eastern North Carolina more than 5 years. All right, so we've got about 70% for those watching from home. You can comment in the webinar Q&A part. So we've got a large majority that have been here, but we also have about 25% of us that have lived here less than, I wouldn't say 5 years. So this is a graph to show you how vulnerable our area is to storms. These are Category 4 storms since 1842. I apologize, some of the colors are a little washed out on this, but on the webinar version, you should see this pretty well. So Cat 4 storms, luckily, knock on wood, we don't get a lot of them, but we've had some since 1842. What do you think is going to happen as I decrease the number? Is it going to go up or down? Up. So Cat 3, you can see more lines on the map. Again, this is about a 100-mile radius around Morehead City, so that encompasses a lot of eastern North Carolina. So we've had some Cat 3 storms, we've had more Cat 2 storms, and we've had a lot of Category 1 storms. This doesn't even show depressions or tropical storms. The point of these graphics is to show, yes, we are vulnerable to hurricanes where we live. If you did not realize, or you're new to the area, we are the most vulnerable stretch of coastline in the entire United States, eastern North Carolina. It's because we stick out, especially Cape Hatteras, that is a lot of it to our north and east, but we do get a lot of storms that if they don't impact us directly, they're very close to us. Pretty much every year, every other year, we have something to pay attention to. Maybe not a direct landfall. I can see the lady up front, and some people, you get anxious when you hear that. That's the reality, that we do run the risk of storms each year. Doesn't mean we're going to have a direct landfall every year, and it's a terrible place to live. But I do want people to realize that we do get storms in our area. When I first moved down to the area, I've been here, it's hard to believe, about 6.5 years now. The number one question I would get was, what's the hurricane outlook this year? And I'll be careful since we're being recorded. The men and women at the Hurricane Center is not the only one that does it. It's the Climate Prediction Center. They do a great job with the hurricane forecast. It's not that it's not an inaccurate forecast, but it does not matter what this outlook says. Again, it does not matter what this outlook says. It's not because it's not accurate. It's not because they don't do a good job. It only takes one storm. And that's not a PR line. That's not a one-liner that we're told to say. That is reality. We could have the wimpiest storm or year on record. We could have only one storm this season for the whole entire hurricane season. And the rest of the country would say, wow, that was the wimpiest hurricane season we ever had. But if it hit Pine Knoll Shores, it's a bad year. So that's why we emphasize it only takes one storm each and every year. You should be preparing each and every year. And this year, we don't have a strong signal. Jason and I could make this forecast. It's about a third chance that it could be below normal, near normal, or above normal. There's no real strong signal to help us. And the reality is our water is very warm this year abnormally, so that's a plus for an active year. We're trending toward El Nino, which is a negative for an active year. So there's a lot of mixed signals this year. So even more so this year, don't really pay any attention to the outlook because it just takes one storm. I show this graphic every year. I love this graphic. It's one of my favorite ones. Shows at the peak of the hurricane season, the orange and yellow is about mid-September. So if you're new to the area and we're after Labor Day and the kids have gone back to school, I do not want to hear you say, wow, we made it through hurricane season. Because I heard that in 2018 with Florence. If I could find that person. But again, reality is the peak is not until mid-September. It's a long season. A lot of folks are talking about, we've got Brett out in the Atlantic Ocean today, way out there. It is early, but we have had storms as early as May. And we have storms well into the month of October. So anytime from May 1st until the end of October, you should be paying attention. You might say, Mr. Eric, hurricane season doesn't start until June 1st. We've had them as early as May. Traditionally, they don't tend to be really strong early in the season because the water's not super warm, but it can impact our area. So the time to prepare is now in terms of your hurricane planning. So I mentioned weather.gov/Morehead City. On this same site, there's a lot of links on it, or you can just add the word hurricane prep, or you can get your phone out and scan the QR code, and that is our preparedness page. I'm not a Mr. Coder. I'm not great with websites, but I made this site so we had everything in one spot. Everything the Hurricane Center has, everything local to our area is in this spot. Know your zone, your evacuation zone, what to have in your kit, you know, what to do for your home. Any of that information you need is on this site. Hurricane Prep, just add it to our local site. And we really want to focus on 3 things. Number 1 is your vulnerability. What is your risk to storms? Do you live in a low-lying area? Do you have elderly in your home that rely on oxygen? If I lose power in my home, even with a 15 and 12 and 9-year-old, they're probably out of the area anyway. Usually just send them just away. But say they're home and we lose air conditioning or electricity, that's, you know, it's just an inconvenience for me. If I lose power and I have somebody in my home that's reliant on oxygen, that's life-threatening. So your vulnerability is not just weather, it's who's in your home. Young people, old people, cats, dogs, whatever you have in your home, think about what your vulnerability is. And that is something today that you think about. The other thing you want to think about is your hurricane kit. We stress at least 3 days worth of food, water, and medicine. Bare minimum, nothing lower than that. Really trying to push you to 7 days, at least a week, to be reliant on your own. If you make the decision to stay, you should be prepared to stay on your own without electricity, and that you have the supplies you need so that you don't need to call the local officials to come help you, because they might not be able to come help you. So take that all into account. Don't forget about your pets. If you've got young ones, don't forget about formula, diapers, anything you need. You're not just going to be able to run out to Walmart or the local stores or the big box stores to stay put. And that's all in that website as well. Your kit's going to have to be a little bigger if you're planning on staying. If your vulnerability is higher, you might want to rethink your evacuation. That, hey, you might want to be one of those first people to leave because you don't want to stay here if we lose power. So those are all things that you want to think about today. The last step, what's your vulnerability? Make sure you work on that kit. Where would you go? Have a plan to go somewhere. Don't just assume you're going to stay here no matter what. I've been here for 25 years and I've never left. Well, you don't know what the next storm is going to do. Each storm is unique. You never know when the next big one is here. Have a place to go inland, far away from the storm. We stress multiple locations. You can't just say, I'm going to Goldsboro, I'm going to Raleigh, or I'm going to Charlotte. Sometimes those areas are just as impacted, if not more impacted than us. Just depends on where the storm goes. If they get 20 inches of rain in Raleigh, and we only get a couple inches of rain and wind, they're going to have a bigger issue, like they did with Fran and Floyd. They had major issues far inland. So my parents just moved to Swansboro in August, so my plan A is gone. It's off the table. Plan A was just south of Baltimore, Maryland, where I grew up. That's where my family went for Florence. That's where they went for Dorian. Plan A no longer exists. So our plan A is probably Columbia, South Carolina. We've got family out there. Plan B is probably stick them in the mountains somewhere. But again, we had, I don't even know if it was a hurricane. I think it was Tropical Storm Fred. It was a couple of years ago. They mentioned it at an EM conference. I said, Fred, I don't remember any Fred. It, I think, killed some people in Western North Carolina. With that type of topography, if they get heavy rain, it can be an issue. So just have at least 2 places, a north and a south, far away. You just want to go in the opposite direction of that. So I threw a lot of information at you, but this is something you think about today. So then when the storm comes, hey, we're only expecting a couple inches of rain and some 50-mile-per-hour winds. Hey, I've got my kit. I'm staying put. Hey, it's going to be a 20-inch rainstorm with 4 days of rain or 4 days of wind. I'm going to evacuate. This is where I go. You don't have to think about it. You can just do it. And I can promise you, you saw this with the supply chain issues the last couple of years that are certainly getting better. Do not wait on your kit to get the water and canned goods. And spread it out. A lot of us are very blessed in this room. We could go out today and get everything we need. We're extremely lucky. Not everybody in the community can do that. Try to stress to folks that are struggling, get a little bit at a time. Canned goods this weekend, a couple weekends from now, get your water. Slowly that will spread out the financial impact and ensure that you can do it. Any questions on that part? So again, kit at least 3, but try 7 days. multiple ways to evacuate, multiple places to go, and talk about your vulnerability in your household now before you make your plan. So before we move on, we had a lot of show of hands, trying to do something different. I think our talks are pretty good. We've inserted a couple new jokes and things like that, but we have a tremendous amount of experience here. So if you're willing, what is one thing you would share that you would do differently than you did in the past, or something that you would do now? You wished you knew this before you moved to the area. What's one thing? We have got a new resident. What's one thing that I didn't talk about? Maybe cash on hand. What's one thing you wish you could share with new residents in terms of hurricane? If you don't mind, I'm gonna turn this around because it's our mic. Don't be shy. We only have millions of people watching. So what's one thing different you would do?
I was down here for a lot of hurricanes. I rode them all out, except I had enough sense to leave for Florence. And I think I'll be more likely to leave in the future.
So not being reluctant to leave. That I never will forget with Florence, my priest over at a little shameless plug, St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Moorhead. It's a great place. He asked if I would speak on the Sunday service before Florence. And we're never super confident, about anything. But 5 days out, we're pretty darn sure we're going to get something really bad. And I wanted to make sure I didn't alarm people too much, but was, sincere about, hey, this is something we had never seen before. And then we had a lot of storms in our area, but we were on the right side of the storm. It was going to be many days. So reluctance to leave. That's a good one. Anything else? Yes.
A friend told me, and I thought this was such great advice, if you buy like a 24 pack of water bottles and put them in your freezer before the power goes out, you might be able to save things.
Okay.
You just stuck them in all the little places.
So you've got some ice.
It really causes it to stay cold.
Okay, good. Anything else? I see a lot of hands. I appreciate yeah.
Two quick things, and you've been advertising this actually. Forget the category.
Yes.
It really means nothing as far as potential. The other thing, personal preference. We will not travel to Europe again around September. We were in Belgium when Dorian was dancing around out there, and that was a very uneasy feeling. It kind of impacted the trip a little bit.
So I'll give you your cash payment later for mentioning not to focus on category. I got to admit, Jason, I was a little disheveled because I didn't have something worked out tech-wise. So I skipped by my first slide, which said don't focus on the emojis, and we'll reinforce that. So thank you. We'll get you your payment later. Yes.
I heard recently that none of the gas stations on both banks have backup generators. So you have to be sure to fill your power and go to the ATM machine while in the bank.
Yep. So get that cash well in advance. Make sure you're not running on empty. Get that gas early. That is true. That's one thing I still remember from Florence. The gas station by us, long lines before the storm, and then waiting when the power was restored. It was hard to get gas. Yes.
One thing is to be cautious. If you go west, and there's actually a lot of rain west, then you've extended the period that you can't get back because of the floods that come down from the Piedmont. And so I think I would head more southwest than I would directly west or northwest. We ended up being isolated an extra couple of days. We left in Florence, but then we couldn't get back here because the floods were so bad. And then 2 days later, we came again through Kinston.
Yeah.
So it got extended. In many ways, you got extended up almost to a week.
Yeah. So if you evacuate just farther inland, directly west,
Like the Goldsboro or that way,
Yeah.
you get stuck and can't get in.
Highway 70 in Kinston will usually be cut off, and then either I-95 or Highway 74, 76, I think it is, out by Lumberton as well. Yes.
Eric, one issue I saw in town during Florence, I encourage everyone to get one of those bricks mobile phone charger, that you power up prior to, and to get a large, good quality one, it'll charge your phone for days. We had a lot of folks who not recharge phones and reach out to people.
Those are excellent. Excellent point. Anything else? Yes.
If you're stuck with no water, no power, you can flush a commode by going out in the front yard, getting a bucket of water, and dumping it in the bowl.
Yes, you do not need power to flush the toilet. That's a good point as well. Anything else? I really appreciate all of these. Yes.
When we were coming back from Florence, it was really hard to get back. The roads were flooded. And what worked best for us was Waze,
Oh, yeah.
WACE, because it's interactive. And so we saw, people reported that a road was closed. And that was really helpful.
All right, we're going to move along. I really appreciate everybody talking about their experiences. That's way, you just add a lot more value than just me saying it or Mr. Jason saying it. You've been through these storms, you have the experience, so that's really, really good. And again, this is being recorded. We got 25 people online. We got about 30 plus here, so this is great. Thank you so much for coming. Share this with new neighbors that couldn't come today. Make sure they view this recording, because all those pieces of information you said are very valuable and useful, and your experience is valuable. We're going to go over a couple quick products, talk about impacts, and then turn it over to Mr. Jason. The first thing you should be checking on a probably daily basis this time of year is the tropical weather outlook. Raise your hand if you've seen this before. It could be on the local news, they'll show it. So we won't say the joke with hurricanes, not hurricanes that you love, it's hurricanes.gov. But the easiest way to remember the Hurricane Center site is just hurricanes.gov. You can get it from our page. If you just want to bookmark our page and stick with our page, that's fine. We just have so many links. I like to try to give you the direct one, and you can use the QR code as well. So this outlook has been around forever. It's 4 times a day to issue, what we think from the Hurricane Center's perspective is a low, medium, or high chance of either depression or tropical storm, something getting organized out in the ocean or the seas. This has now been extended out to 7 days. It used to only go out to 5. Now it's out to 7 days. And it's color coded. Low chance yellow, moderate is orange, and red is high. This is something that, a couple days ago, even back on Sunday when I was working, it showed a 90% chance that Brett, would probably come about, at least be a disturbance, and that has happened. So it's something you don't need to check 4 times a day, but just once in the morning. Hey, is there anything going on out there? Something to pay attention to with the tropics. The next step, let's see, let's switch this around. Okay. This one you're probably more familiar with. This is the forecast cone. This is if it actually gets a name. It's a system. Shows where the most probable path of the center of the storm is. I'm not a lawyer, but that is what it is. And we say that very specific. That shows where we think the center of the storm is going to go. And unlike Mr. Eric, who has not been on the diet in the last 6 years, this cone has gotten skinnier and skinnier through the years. And it's because it's based on our error over the past 5 years. So it's not hand drawn. It's not, hey, this is a huge storm, we're going to draw a big cone, or it's a little storm, we're going to draw a small one. It's drawn at each interval, 12 hours, 24, 36, based on statistical error. And it shows only the most likely path of the storm. So I'm throwing a lot at you, but the bottom line is this only shows where we think the center is going to go. Does not show you impacts. On this cone graphic, do you see how much rain is predicted? No. On this graphic, does it show you how much storm surge is predicted? No. It does not show you impacts. It just shows you where we think the storm is going to go. And it's not an in or out of the cone I need to worry or not worry. For example, as Florence got closer, New Bern was not in the forecast cone because it just shows the center. And we were very confident it was going to hit down toward Wrightsville Beach, and that's where the center of the storm was going to go. But we know that a hurricane is not a dot on a map. Impacts occur well away from the center itself. So when you see this, pay attention to it, but just know it's only showing you where we think the storm is going to go. And if you're anywhere in the general vicinity of that, you should pay attention. If it's going to Charleston and we're not in the cone, it's not a, whew, that's their problem, we don't have to worry about it. No, if you're anywhere close, you should be paying attention. The storm can be very, very big. Or a third of the time, it tracks out of this cone, and we're wrong. So recently, we've been quite correct on the storm track, but sometimes, that's not going to be the case. So please pay attention. If it's anywhere really on the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic, down through the Southeast, you should be paying attention to that forecast code. All right, so the gentleman in the blue had said this, and I'm glad he pointed up to re-emphasize. This is our favorite hurricane scale, the Saffir-Simpson scale. It shows strength of the storm only related to wind. And my statement with that is always, or my question to you is, have you heard this statement by a loved one, a neighbor, a spouse? I'm not gonna leave unless it's at least a 2. I'm not gonna leave unless it's a 3. Oh, I've been through 3s before. I'm gonna stay. This is only related to the wind. It has nothing about surge or rainfall, what side of the storm you get hit on, how big the storm is, whether it's going to sit here for 4 days. It's to be respected. I live in Cape Carteret. As the crow flies 3 miles to the ocean. Was I worried when Florence was a 4? Yes. I'm not saying ignore it. I'm saying it's only part of the puzzle. What you really should focus on is all of the impacts that can occur. There's really too much emphasis on the category of the storm. It's only based on wind. As Florence got closer, time and time again, news media would call and say, hey, Florence is weakened. Should we not worry about it anymore? Or it's weakening. No. The wind speed's going down. The storm is getting larger as the wind field expands. We're still worried about catastrophic flooding and all that. So don't just pay attention to that. And for the locals to reemphasize, do you remember Irene and Florence? And then just a tropical storm, Hermine, and then back in 05, Ophelia and Matthew, especially the southwest part of our area. Those were all just ones. Almost 200 deaths and almost $200 billion of damage since 2010 from just ones. Again, category of the storm, don't just focus on that. It's part of the puzzle. It's not the whole thing. The other thing I want to bring up is past experience in anchoring. Past experience can be a good thing. The gentleman in the back mentioned, being more lenient on leaving the area. So experience is a good thing, but sometimes it's a bad thing. When prior to Florence, a lot of people think we had a lot of storms up here, but a lot of our storms hit toward Cape Hatteras, and we were on the left side of the storm. We were on the weaker side. Florence, similar to Fran, we were on the right side of the storm. So sometimes, you think you've been through a real bad storm and you haven't. They're usually a very narrow area that's impacted. So experience can be good or bad. And anchoring is, you look at the information 5, 6, 7 days out. Oh, it's heading toward Charleston. And you stop paying attention. Check those updates. You don't have to check 5 times a day, but in the morning, just check back. What's the trend? What's the change? Are we trending up, down? What's going on with the storm itself? So don't anchor to one piece of information and then not check back to see for updates. Do a show of hands. How many of you have been to one of these talks by me before? Okay, so this is a good mix. So we have some repeat customers, so it must not be that bad of a talk. We have a lot of new folks. So for the repeat ones, you say, Mr. Eric, 60s through 2012, you show this graphic every year. We're 2023. Do you have anything new? This is a graphic showing deaths during this period, 60s through 2012. Half of all deaths were storm surge, another third were rainfall. Water, 90% of people dying through 2012 were water related. That was statistically the biggest killer. We do have a new graphic. Through 2022, it is still water. I know the numbers might be hard for you to see in person, but now it's mostly freshwater flooding. So if you look at that, the biggest part of the pie graph is freshwater flooding, almost 60%. The next blue shade is storm surge, and then that teal blue is rip currents. So still about 85 to 90% of deaths are water related. We've made huge improvements on storm surge. We have storm surge watches and warnings. Storm surge is a fast rise of water ahead of the storm. We had 10 feet of it in New Bern. So it is very deadly. But traditionally, we've done better in the last couple of years with that. Most of our lives are being lost in vehicles, inland flooding, people crossing flooded roads, going through flood water. So water. Traditionally, less than 10% of deaths are wind related. What does that category scale show? Only wind. Will it damage your property? Yes. Will it cause a mess? Yes. Will it cause you to lose electricity? Yes. But statistically, you're much more likely to die because of water And that could be rip current through storm surge or freshwater flooding. Another point of emphasis, so in the past, we've always emphasized water, water, water. That has not changed. Don't focus on the category only. That has not changed. We're really trying to preach this, and Mr. Jason has done a really good job on this the last couple of years. So this is kind of a local point that we've emphasized, but at the national level, they want us to re-emphasize. Don't let your guard down after the storm has passed. You've evacuated inland. It's going to be hard to get back here, but don't go in an area that you shouldn't go. Don't cross a flooded road. You've got that nice generator, know how to use it. Run it, in the off season so that you know how to use it. Not in a garage, not in an enclosed space. Don't be doing anything crazy on ladders. Traditionally, 8 times as many, you're 8 times more likely to be a victim after the storm if you're an elderly population. So don't do things that you don't usually do. So please don't let your guard down once the storm has passed. We know that you want to get your house back in order, you want to get back home, but you've done all this planning, you've sat through this talk each year. Preparedness is not just before the storm, it's after it as well. And that's how we're going to end on impacts. So if I tell you not to focus on just a category, what should you focus on? These 5 things. How much rain are we going to have? What's the storm surge going to be? Rip currents. What's our risk for rip currents? We're going to talk about that in a second. Wind, and then tornadoes. Those are the 5 threats. This is a map of rainfall in Florence. The magenta and pink shading in the lower left includes Pine Knoll Shores down through Swansboro. We had 20 to 30 inches of rain. 20 to 30 inches of rain. Tremendous amount of rain. When you get that much water, even with our sandy soil and lack of topography and terrain, you're going to get flash flooding, and we have flooding all over the county. Inland from us, we don't have major rivers down our way. I know we got the Newport River, but we're talking more Tar River, Neuse River. Those places will flood for days and weeks. Our peak of Florence, a lot of those rivers didn't crest until 10 days after landfall. So it's just a reality that I'm not saying not to go inland, but like the one gentleman said, it might be hard to get back. You might want to scoot up the coast or down the coast so that you can get in here. Some of those inland ways are cut off. I'll never forget this. We took some state climatologists from Raleigh to Pollocksville. I don't know if you go through Pollocksville very often. I don't as much anymore. If it's a bypass, you go around it, the western part of the county. There's still a watermark in downtown Pollocksville at one of the restaurants. To this day, it's under an awning, so it's protected, and you can see that mud line 5 years or almost 5 years later. Devastating flooding for our inland communities when you get that amount of rain. And we saw it with Matthew and Floyd. It doesn't have to, those are just ones. We could have just a tropical storm, and if you get 20, 30 inches of rain, you're going to have an issue. This is a picture I always like to show to reemphasize. We've got some younger folks in the room, new drivers. Water is extremely powerful. It takes about 1.5 feet of water to move your vehicle. It's very buoyant. Water is very, very strong. But you also don't know if the road exists. We have many road washouts during Florence. So you might say, who would drive through flooded water? A, you would be surprised. And B, we're a very rural community. It is dark when the sun goes down inland. So you see that water across the road, and you might not know how deep it is, or if it's even the road still existing. So you decide to stay, you decide to evacuate, stay where you are. Until the flood waters recede, don't go driving around. The campaign with that is turn around, don't drown. It's just like smoke detectors in houses. This is a very preventable death. More than half of flood-related deaths are in vehicles. It's not that you're in your home and the water comes up all of a sudden. It is folks in vehicles doing things they shouldn't do, or they may not realize that they're in that type of danger. So please help us educate the community on that. So we talked about rainwater flooding, and we've also talked about some of the issues with the various flooding in our area. Storm surge is another type of water that we get. When you have a big storm coming at us, it's pushing those large waves, and the rise of water ahead of it is storm surge. That's what made Florence so bad. It was a very intense storm, and as the wind weakened, the core of the storm went from being really small to much wider. So we had a huge wind field pushing the water our way. On the coast, I think it was 3 to 6 feet of surge at our coast. Up the Neuse River in New Bern was one of the highest ones. It was above 10 feet. The water really funnels up that Neuse River Pamlico Sound is extremely shallow. With Dorian, we saw 4 to 7 feet on Ocracoke. They're only a few feet above sea level. So storm surge is a big deal in eastern North Carolina. We get surge and coastal issues with nor'easters really year round. We have water issues because of our vulnerability being lower and by the water. So knowing your elevation of your home, I can talk to you after this. There's flood maps that are on our hurricane preparedness site. If you just Google NC flood maps, there's a program called Feynman. There's river gauges and flood gauges. You should know your elevation of your home and also kind of what you are in terms of flooding about this. And you can really predict what could happen in a storm just knowing your elevation. Second to last one are rip currents. I love seeing the yellow flags flying here in the community. A lot of awareness of rip currents. We continue to try to educate the public on this. Rip currents occur well ahead, well away from a storm itself. We lost more people in 2019 because of Lorenzo than Dorian. And Lorenzo, I don't remember, did that hit here? No, it was 2,000 miles away, but it was a nice October stretch of weather. It was sunny out. It's not ominous. You don't have dark clouds on rip current days and you can't hear thunder or see lightning. You have this long period swell far away from storms can cause issues. So if we get new people in the area, people vacation, let's say you put the big bucks down and you're staying a whole week here. The storm's not hitting until Friday. You're going to be in the water Saturday afternoon when you arrive, Sunday and Monday and Tuesday until you got to leave, right? Well, just because it's sunny out doesn't mean we're not getting those rip currents well ahead of it. So we include information like this in our briefings to the people in the community that, yeah, we're going to show you the wind map and the rain map and the surge map. This is why we're talking rip currents, because well ahead of a storm, you're getting large waves or that long period swell. So please help us educate the community about that. Last but not least, tornadoes. This is a picture of Bogue Inlet Pier. I'll never forget this. Coming into the conference room, doing briefings for local officials, and I see this on our camera. Looks like something you'd see in Oklahoma or Kansas. EF2 tornado hit Emerald Isle. This is, if not the first, one of the first rain bands of Dorian. So that's another point on that map of the forecast cone. Oh, it's going to make landfall this day. Well, storm is hundreds of miles across. Make sure you look at the timing of the rain and wind because that will be well ahead of the center. If you choose to stay, have multiple ways to get warnings. Make sure your cell phone's charged, maybe have some battery backups. Make sure it's not turned on do not disturb if you're going to bed. Because if you decide to stay, you can get tornadoes which can produce enhanced areas of damage. It's not to scare you, it's just reality. Hey, I decide to stay, just be prepared to seek shelter like in an interior room at a moment's notice because we can certainly get these tornadoes. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Jason, and before I do that, I think this presentation is good. I think we've shared a lot of good information, but I have to admit, especially for new folks, I would feel overwhelmed. I kind of feel overwhelmed telling you about this, but this is the reality. We live in a beautiful location. We're vulnerable. We can't do anything about that. We have zero control, as much as I like to joke around over the weather. Can't make it happen. I will say my wedding day was sunny. I'll just leave it at that.
Stormy.
Yeah. You do have control over making the kit. You do have control over coming up with multiple places to go. You do have control over sharing this with the neighbor. Those folks that have lived here more than 5 years, share this information with them. You do have control over not focusing on just a category. We will rebuild, we'll do whatever we have to. We've been here for years and we've been through it. So don't be overwhelmed by it, but definitely take some of these actions on the board. And if you need anything, shoot me an email. So as that stays up, I'm going to transition to Mr. Jason. Give me about 30 seconds. I'll get you set up. While we do that, are there any questions? I'm going to check the online part. Yes.
You mentioned the right side of the storm is the dirty side. It's at the top and the bottom quadrant. It's worse.
It's really the top right. So the reason why it's the worst part is a hurricane is counterclockwise. So as it's coming, the wind on the right side of the storm is combined with the movement. You've got everything going in the same direction. The left side of the storm, your movement is opposing the rotation of the storm.
So worst case scenario, if it were coming from our west and heading northeast, that's the worst.
Worse, like if it hit Jacksonville, Emerald Isle, on Onslow County, we would be on the right side of the storm.
But if it came straight off the water and turned left, it's not like that.
Not quite as bad, if it turned to the left, we'd still be on that right side. And we'll go over that like on an individual storm basis, but it makes a huge difference. And one thing I didn't mention is as accurate as that forecast has been, little wiggles do matter. For example, let's say we have landfall we expect by Cape Lookout. We would be well within the cone. And if it hit at Cape Lookout or even Ocracoke Inlet, we would be on that left side of the storm. And thankfully, it wouldn't be as bad here, right? But that's really close. If it shifted 20, 30 miles and it was over toward Bogue Inlet instead, just that small shift, which is very possible, we would be on a really, really bad part of the storm. So we usually hedge with that. With the storm surge maps, we plan for a worst case scenario so that you can come back and say, ooh, it wasn't as bad as we thought. We don't want you to be surprised by how bad it could be. Because a little wiggle at the last second is entirely possible.
What was the one that did the outbreak in Bear County? What one, a couple of years ago?
Matthew was really bad up there, and that wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't look like much here.
Yeah, Dorian.
Like Eric saying, it wiggled, like last minute wiggled just a touch. And like we wasn't hardly anything here. Really quick clouds, a little bit of rain. Those folks on Dare County got destroyed.
Probably Dorian. So for most of the area, Dorian was, other than Emerald Isle with the tornado and then Ocracoke, 4 to 7 feet. I mean, all the water went to the west as the storm pushed it, and as soon as the storm left, I mean, in a matter of like 15 minutes, it was quick. So yeah, that was Dorian, just a little wiggle.
Question. I've heard that Brett is different. Somehow it's kind of generated itself differently than we're used to. Can you explain what's different about Brett?
Yeah.
Please.
So the question was about, Brett is different. People have mentioned it's a little different. Traditionally, that's a Cape Verde storm way out in the ocean. Traditionally, that doesn't happen until late August into September because our water warms up first in the Gulf of Mexico, off the coast of Florida and by us, and then it gradually expands through the rest of the ocean. So our normal area of climatology starts Gulf of Mexico near us and then expands out toward Africa. So we usually don't see storms come off the coast of Africa until late August into September, peak of the season. The reason why Brett is different is it's forming very early in the season to be that far out, and it's because the water is anomalously very warm. It's extremely warm out there. So that's why it's happening. We can certainly get storms in June. That's not rare. I mean, it's not super common, but the rareness of Brett is that it formed way out there. That doesn't usually happen that early in the season. Doesn't mean it'll be like that all season, but yeah, it's because of the very warm water this year.
Does that mean anything?
Not really. I mean, it's just something that we have more of the ocean to potentially generate storms. We're really rooting for El Nino, unfortunately. So we are trending toward El Nino, but it doesn't just happen like that. It's not like a light switch. If Miss Megan turns on the lights, and now we're El Nino, and now she turns it off, and we're not. We gradually get into it, so we're hoping for impacts from that. But a lot of that might not help us until we get to fall and winter. So, but we'll see. Yeah, Mother Nature's in charge. All right, let's just see. No questions from and we got 20 people online, so that's perfect. So let's get Mr. Jason up. Just bear with me. Mine.
While he's looking at that, I think this is on one of Jason's slides. We had some tornado activity in Florence, moved through a couple areas in town. The best way for absolute no notice weather alerts is the county's code red alert system. And, we we catch grief on that because, yeah, you'll get the occasional amber or silver alert at 2 a.m. as well. But if you use the code red, Visa and Europe, you get an alert on that thing. So you sign up on that. We'll get the link out. Leslie, if we could do that for the code red alert. Sign up for that, plug in your cell phone number, and that's the best way to get it.
Yeah, we'll go over that here in just a little bit. It's gonna be some of the stuff that I cover. And after this is over, I got on my slides, I have like review notes there near the end. I kind of pulled those slides and make something a little separate. I've got handouts up here. I only got like 10 of them, but I can make more if need be. That has review notes in my entire slide, but it's also got links on there as reminders, but I'm gonna put out contact to do that once I get back to the station. Anybody that wants this presentation, just give me your email before you leave, and you can have the entire presentation. I think I've given this presentation, I don't know how long now, more than 10 years. I think me and Eric have been coordinating, giving these hurricane presentations, and it's more giving people an overview of hurricanes, new people that are here. And even, like I said, 70% of the crowd here right now have been through hurricanes. I was tickled to death to hear some of you guys' points that you were talking about, because I'm going to go over a lot of those points in these slides. So you guys, I mean, y'all been through them, y'all learned a little bit. Maybe we put a little more emphasis on it. And some of the stuff that we see as firemen. If you pick up a little bit of information, put it in that air covered computer that we all have, and crunch it and see if it works for you. And if it helps, or helps you be prepared, that's what we're here for. So that time of year, again, this is not a good time of year for me. Everybody loves summer coming. Me, I kind of like the winter. But because it's we end up, I call it the shooting gallery. Mr. Kramer over there, and everybody gets these texts from me when these things pop up. Oh, they're watching this one. Oh, they're watching this one. And I think there was already one that I sent out in May that they were watching. It was what I call a homegrown hurricane. It was close. It was low pressure that could have formed. That was a couple of weeks ago. So that time of year, again, not my favorite time of year. Focus on disaster preparation, personal preparation, your own house preparation, and then, like I said, we'll go over what the town does and what the staff does. Mexico City, Hurricane Michael. Just put this on there today. It just hit me. But I mean, that's just, looks like a bomb went off, destroyed. The one thought I want to get to everybody's mind today is, I think it's a human nature type of deal, that you think stuff like this won't happen to you. Bad things won't happen to you. It always happens to the other guy. I guarantee you, most everybody in Mexico City right there never thought that would happen. Can we see this in Final Shores, Carter County? You better believe we can. Will we see it in Carter County? Yes, you will. And it can be just utter devastation like that. Like Eric said, only takes one. If that was the only storm that hit Mexico City that year, that was a good one, or bad one, however you want to look at it. So being prepared for stuff like this really begins with you. Objectives: give people new to the area idea how to prepare for hurricanes, like I just said. Refresh hurricane preparation, thinking in old salts, which is about 70% of you guys here. And I don't know online, there's comments there online, how many of the folks online have been through hurricanes before. The long part, what you're going to do with tips and ideas to prepare for a storm event, some different programs that may be a help, the notes, the handouts I got over there, and they're in the presentation. How 911 response may be affected during a storm event, and then, like I said, what the town does to prepare. So kind of to Eric's slide there, hurricane history. I can't remember what year this is. Those are all tracks of hurricanes. So do you think we'll get hit again? And like I say, about 70% of you guys have been through. These things are big. They're not little events or huge events. I'll talk more about categories of storms and how I can't stand hearing somebody talk about category storms. I hear it every year. Oh, it's a category 1. When I first got Final Shores affiliate did it. I got here in 2005. And, and I think you've been a commissioner since then. Like I hear no 5 affiliate hits, and it was category 1. Everybody, oh, it's category 1, category 1, category 1. It sat on our beach, I think at Iron Steamer Access for 36 hours, just whooped the bejesus out of us. And after that storm, I would hear folks, oh my God, I can't believe it was that bad. You know, that was just a category 1. It don't matter. It matters where that thing's coming into. Category 1, and if I say something weather related, it's wrong, Megan, Eric, throw something at me. But category 1 can have a broader base and push more water than a narrow running strong 4. You know, I mean, how big they are is how much water they're pushing out ahead of them, how much ocean water is pushed over them. You'll hear me talk about hurricane reentry passes here in Final Shores. We had these blue passes that we give out at PSB. Leslie works there at PSB, and she is the one that gives them out. You need these to get back on the island. To explain them a little bit, you have this pass, and if you evacuate like you should, and you go way inland, when we start to allow people back on the island, we allow pass holders first. You own property here, we're trying to give you a chance to get back on board the island, take a look at your property, maybe see what you need to do, see what you need to clean up before general public comes on board and wants to go surfing and all that stuff. So have your pass, know where your pass is. It's 1 per household. It's $25 if you want another vehicle or whatever. Know where that's at. When you leave here today, if you know you got one, go lay your hands on it. Put it in your glove box in the car that you plan on taking. Just know where it's at. Have your hands on it. You are the one that needs to prepare your house for a hurricane. This really got big in disaster preparation. I think Katrina really opened people's eyes to the need for disaster preparation. I'm sure the Knoll crowd have seen this throughout history, but you know, I think Katrina really made the emphasis on personal preparation and how you can't fall back to the federal government to save you. Federal government, FEMA puts out there 96 hours. You got to be prepared for 96 hours on your own before they're going to start getting help in there to you. I say 120 hours, like Eric. I even like Eric saying 7 days, but you need to be able to handle yourself for a period of time. Do I stay or do I go? Like we're saying, I'm always going to tell you to go. Right there that's not the time frame to be thinking about whether you're staying or you're going. A little late for that now. The big thing about being in Carter County, what even pushes more about being in Carter County and evacuating out of Carter County is there's only 2 ways in and out of Carter County. There's Highway 17, you got to go up 58 to get to her, and you got Highway 70, which is mainly what we'll all be using. Everybody's going to try to evacuate. We'll say, oh, mandatory evacuation for 48 hours, hit a storm that way, buddy. You're going to be stuck in traffic. Might ride that storm out, sitting in your car on the highway. Everybody's got the same idea. They're going to wait till the last minute. They're going to jump on the highway and they're going to clog it. And it's going to be very difficult to get out of here. So, you know, keep that stuff in mind. There's a salesman told me one time there's no good way to get into or out of Carter County. That's the reason why I like it. Because it comes to disasters, it makes things difficult. Always recommend evacuation. We are, for us, Final Shores, we are on an island, if you didn't realize that. No help from the mainland, you could be cut off for days. Medical emergency, you could be on your own or at least in the hands of paramedics, which is he's one of them, I'm another one. You want him, not me. Awaiting air evac, if we can even do that, for each proper medical attention. When a hurricane comes, our medical director will loosen up our protocols that we run by to give us more free rein to do what we need to do to handle victims, but there's only so much paramedic can do. And then why be uncomfortable? One of the biggest complaints, people are here. You ain't gonna have electricity for days. It's gonna be hot, it's gonna be muggy, it's gonna be buggy, and it's no fun. It's not fun to hear the wind and the rain. I mean, it's cool for about the first 5 seconds. And then you're over it. You want to go home or you want to be comfortable, you want to have an air conditioning. So just go in. Afraid to leave the property is a big thing I hear. Worry about the property. There ain't a thing in that property that can't be replaced. Not a thing at all. Maybe some pictures or whatever. But nothing worth losing your life over. One thing they used to do on the island, I've been working as a fireman on the island since 99. One thing we used to do is we'd go around to people that were staying and we'd have to get their information. One of the big things we put on there was your next of kin. Like, who we contact next of kin, you don't make it. That'll get you some funny looks. Next of kin, you're dead. We want to know who called you the body. That all the time will get people out. Make people leave. Make sure, one thing, I'll probably hit on this again a little bit. I'm trying to go through this pretty quick, but your personal documents, your bank documents, your house insurance documents, your social security cards, the documents you will need to rebuild and to start over, know where they're at, have your hands on them, keep them in a rucksack, a little rucksack that you can grab and go, keep them in a little waterproof case, pouch, whatever you want to call it, but be able to grab them when you go. Take those with you. You'll need them. Hopefully you don't need them, but if you need them, you got them. It'll help you start to rebuild everything, get your feet back on the ground. Afterwards, I keep mine in a rucksack beside the bed, and I tell the wife if the house is on fire, the kids out first, yourself next, and kids out first, rucksack next, and then you jump.
Sure.
But yeah, know where that stuff's at. You might need it if you leave the house. Well, Eric's hitting on a lot of them will hit on too, and there's a reason we're both hitting on it is because it's super important to pay attention to, and we can't emphasize it enough. You cannot gauge whether you need to stay or need to go by the category of the storm. Forget those numbers. Forget those numbers. It's only a category 1 storm. I talked about that. Too many variables over and above category numbers for that to be the gauge to stay or go. I mean, Cat 3, somebody says Cat 3, 4, 5, that gets your attention. And anything in those numbers, leave. But so many more variables past that. And NOAA does the best. That's why I like having Eric here to show his websites off and stuff, because it's just, it's just super cool information to go in there and watch and have access to. Like Eric hit on again, real killer storm surge. Water will always be the killer. Category 1 can be pushing more water than a 2, 3, whatever. But, and then one good thing about being on the island here, people will tell me is, we'll say, well, it's got the ocean to drain back into. We got the sound there. The sound actually causes a lot of depends how the storm pushes water up into it. But they say, oh, water's gonna run off. Yeah, that's true too. But that water might be taking your house with it. It might be leaving with the trophy. But water is going to be the big killer. The inland water, that one slide that Eric puts up that shows the road washed out, the water and the road washed out. When growing up a little redneck, big trucks, things like that, I see water across the road. That was one time. But when he shows the picture of the water across the road, and then he shows the picture after the water's gone, it's that type of stuff. Never, ever water going across the road. It's not a good idea. It's a quick way to meet your maker. Like I say, ton of great info on the website. You can't say enough about storm surge being the killer. Pets, please God, don't leave your pets here. That's not a cool thing to do. It happens. We've seen it, dealt with it. But the thing about pets is, if you evacuate, take them with you. If you go to shelter, be sure you're checking shelter requirements for your pets. You might have their shot documentation, things of that nature. If you stay in place, have enough food for your pets too. And up here, again, here's some of the links. These are a couple of new links I've found just the other day, going back through going through this presentation, getting ready for today. The public shelter is one I had on there, but I put it on again. That's Carter County website. Just tons of info about shelters and pets and things of that nature. And then a cool one, and I haven't finished digging into this one yet, but Paul's at Carteret.org, the hurricane shelter. Paul's, ton of good info there on their website. I wanted to include that link there. They really cool stuff on there, and they do a lot to help out with pets during storms. And even if you just like you have to go to a shelter that not allow pets, they can help you with that. Always really cool. Get this one a lot. When does fire department leave? Everything we do, everything with a hurricane is a dynamic situation. Things change, like storm wiggling, where it's going to land at. I look at a lot of things before I say I'm going to pick up my fire department leave the island. It's not what you want to do at all. But some of the things I look at, basically I have no set criteria. Usually I answer strong category 3 that's coming in south of us. Some criteria I think about: estimated storm surge, a real killer, which side of the storm am I on? And this gentleman here, you were talking about that, about where they hit, where they land. These things like to come in inlets, they like to come up rivers. So if I'm watching a storm come up and we stick out there like a sore bum, that's why Carter County gets hit so bad. Is it direct hit or indirect hit? But that storm was coming in Wilmington, Swansboro, down that way, Cape Fear, and that's bad news for us. I don't like that at all. I'm really paying attention at that point. If it's going to come like Dorian came just to the east of us, went up the Outer Banks, I'm kind of more cool with that. If it was a bigger storm, I want to hang out a little bit more. I think about staying, but again, you're really rolling dice at that point with fire dice. That's what you do. But one wiggle and you're toast. One wiggle is like the general that chooses to fight a battle or not choose to fight a battle. If he chooses to fight it and he wins, he's a hero. And if he chooses to fight a battle and he loses, he's an idiot. It kind of goes back to that. Of course, direct or indirect hit, mentioned Ophelia in 2005. In the speed of the storm, I think it was Arthur that was moving so fast, and it just like went through so quick. Here's the bit. What I know a lot of people are going to do is they're going to write it out. As much as we say evacuate, a lot of people are going to stay. So where do you start? About June 1st. That'd be the latest point in time to start. That's looking like that's too late this year. Planning long begins. There's no magical date. Like Eric said, we've been hitting May, we've been hitting late October. There's no magical date for these things. They don't have calendars in a hurricane. Worst case scenario, I always have firemen. A lot of dark humor, a lot of worst case scenario in our minds. House burns down, a tornado comes through unexpectedly, localized flooding, any number of things can occur, and you should be ready for them. The tornado the ones that hit them that Eric was talking about, we had the ones that came through Atlantic Beach over here, came through there to Doomsgate. And, I think Kramer was calling me on the phone. I was at the house heading that way because I was hearing this stuff go out about tornadoes. And I'm like, whatever, got it. I'm on right over here, 10 o'clock at night, 10:30, and they ain't doing nothing to it. Well, I got about community college there in Moorhead. I seen like 3 straight across the road. Might be something to this. Got over here doing escaping. And it was so quick that it came off the ocean, tore through that west end of AB, and then went across the sound and tore over Moorhead pretty good. Hit the hospital and all. But they happen, and can happen at any point in time. And I get a lot of questions about why we didn't. We used to have sirens in town. People would ask me why we didn't set the sirens off for that tornado that hit. I'm like, look, man, if you could have heard the sirens with that one, you were fine, you were safe, because it was already gone. Not like we knew it was coming. But any number of bad things can occur. They happen to everybody. I don't know how many times I can say bad things happen to good people. You always got to be ready for them. Everything revolves around 96 hours. Again, I think this comes out of Katrina. I say 120 hours. I like being more than prepared for anything that goes on. You ever hear term to the government? This really applies, because you never know what they have going on and when they can get to you. So you got to be able to stand on your own 2 feet for a little bit. 7 days is awesome. 4 days of supplies. This is where it gets kind of critical. You need to be stocking this stuff up now. Like Eric says, when you go to the grocery store, if you buy a couple of cases of water and throw them in the garage, buy some canned food and throw them in the garage, non-perishable stuff, non-refrigerator stuff, to live off of a lot of dehydrated stuff you can buy these days. Ramen noodles. I think most of the teenagers, probably college students, live off of ramen noodles. It works. But always think about survival stuff first. You can go a long time without food. You can only make about 2.5 days without water. So water's a big one. You have shelter, you have your house. Hopefully the hurricane don't take it from you. Water in jugs or containers helps to prevent contamination. Non-perishable food items, mainly stuff that does not require cooking, sandwiches, lunch meats, things like that. You want to cook food, you don't have, if you have gas, you're going to be fine. You can cook on the stove top as long as you got the tank filled. If you have an electric stove or you need an idea, these gas stove appliances will still work. Make sure that they are, I guess I took that slide out on preparing, but if you got an electric stove, take a look at some little Coleman 2-burner stoves. You get little gallon gas cans, things like that. You can heat water with it, you can boil water with it, you can make small meals with it. And sometimes a hot meal goes a long way for keeping morale high. A hot cup of coffee, a hot cup of tea, whatever you like, it's a big morale booster. But a little backpacking stove is more awesome. Quick touch on cooking gas. If you have a gas appliance, you'll probably be able to cook in the storm if you still have your house. But make sure your tanks are filled. And this time of year, I would fill them often. Before a storm's imminent, I would fill it early. Everybody's going to be having that same thought that you're having about getting their gas tanks filled. And so the gas company might be running behind, or they might run out of gas to even come fill your tanks and keep them. So just be on an idea this time of year, just to keep them topped off. They get down to 3/4, top them off. Gets down to half, definitely top it off. If you don't do that, when the storm's out there coming up the coast, make sure you get that done early. Backpacking stoves, I was talking about that a second ago. Bigger tips, some of the stuff I see, and some of the points that you guys were talking about earlier in there. Fill up a tub with bath water. I really like that idea. The lady over here that was talking about going outside, go to the ditch, it's raining, you can get water out the ditch. You can fill up your bathtub. You can use that to flush toilet, or you can boil it and drink it. Most time use bathtub water just for flushing toilets, things of that nature. If you do got container water, water that you bought, don't use that. Fill up the bathtub. And like I say, in a pinch, if you got some kind of stove you can cook with, backpack stove, Coleman stove, like I was speaking of, you can boil it. I'm gonna hit it one time here, and I'm gonna think about it. It's in the top of my head. Mr. Kramer's point. Another tip we saw a lot in Florence. People live off these bikes now. Is get a couple of power banks. They're pretty cheap, the anchor ones. If you're just gonna keep it in the house, they're pretty cheap, and the anchors. There's a bunch of other ones that you can get. They got some pretty big ones that can charge an iPhone. Just dig around and find them. Health medical, that's a big one for us. If you have any known medical condition, you know what you have: asthma, heart issues, CHF issues, dialysis issues, diabetes issues. You know what you need. You know about how much you use your medicine. Make sure you got that stuff. Make sure you have enough. Some of these things, asthma, you can get enough inhalers to make it with asthma. Diabetes, insulin testing supplies. Does the insulin have to be refrigerated? That could be a problem if you ain't got electricity. Or any kind of medication that's got to be refrigerated. That's going to be a problem when you won't have electricity. Think about that stuff. Oxygen requirements. Eric hit on that. If you need home oxygen, or you're on home oxygen, because you got to get some heart failure, anything of that nature, COPD, electricity is out, it's not gonna do very well for you. And we might have a problem getting you off island to a hospital. Allergic reactions, we see this quite a bit. If you're allergic to bee stings, ants, things of that nature, when it rains, ants come out. After storm, when people go to start cleaning up the yards, if you didn't know you had ground hornets, you'll find them at that time. You go in that palmetto bush, or what do you call it, sawgrass, I call it. You'll find ground hornets, and people get eat up, and they end up, with allergic reaction to them. If you know you need EpiPens, have them close. Cardiac meds, nitro, AED in the house, or batteries charged. Any high blood pressure meds, anything dealing with cardiac dialysis needs. If you are on dialysis, please God, do not stay here during a hurricane. Get off island and get close to a hospital that has the capability to perform dialysis. Main Corridor General does not have that capability at this point in time to perform dialysis. But you need to be off island. You need to be somewhere where you can get dialysis treatments. Meds that need to be chilled, I just went over that. Carter County medically fragile program is what they call it now. This is the thing, like if you know somebody, and this is touchy, I put this up there because it's super important, but it's kind of touchy. But if you have a parent, grandparent down here, or anybody that needs special medical attention, they have a condition that they need help with, or they're not very mobile and they need help getting off the island. This program here, put on by Carter County, is called Medically Fragile. You can sign them up for it. Or if it's a neighbor or something, you can tell them about it, whether they sign up or not. But what happens here is if you sign up for it, you go on a wall up at county, and before a storm comes, we'll get a list of people that are signed up for that program and final programs. Each of the districts will, but I'm just talking about how. So we'll get a list of people and we can go check on those folks and make sure everything's okay. Or if they're going, storm's coming and they got to leave, the county can help facilitate getting them off island and getting them to a proper medical facility. One of the things is if it's some kind of special condition, maybe Duke's the only doctors in the state, they can handle that condition and make sure that they're up around Duke and close to Duke. Got something? Good, Eric? All right. But it's a really cool program. It's really nice. Gasoline for cars, generators, fuels, it kind of goes like filling up the gas at your house. Fill them often and make sure they're full. Have enough gas around the house for 4 or 5 days for your generator. But keep your vehicles filled up this time of year. It's just a good idea to do. Don't let them be hanging around down there in the quarter, because same thing, the gas stations get backed up. Everybody's trying to leave, everybody's trying to top off their tanks. Everybody's trying to get gas for a generator. Perishable items, this is kind of a funny one. But your freezer, your refrigerator, a lady said talking about keeping water bottles in the freezer. That's a perfect idea. Keep a couple of cases of water bottles in there. They'll be frozen and will help keep your freezer cool. Also, if you just do that on a regular basis, you won't burn out your freezer compressor as badly. It keeps your freezer doesn't have to work as hard because it stays colder, hurricane or no hurricane. But in the end, if everything falls in the refrigerator and don't make it, you got water to drink. But stop opening the freezer and checking on your food. You let the cold air out. You got to check, make sure everything's still frozen. They can be frozen long and keep that up. But just keep the door safe. You don't need to check on it. Fire department, guarantee you, we do not have any kind of ordinance or protocol that says we need to save your food. We get those phone calls. We'll raise hell. Their states they call. We're going bad. Yeah, we're not doing nothing about it. All right, eat them. We kind of like it because a lot of times they bring the food to the station. They don't go bad. They don't get anything to eat. They bring it tomorrow. That's cool. We appreciate it. But I have a freezer too. I understand, things go bad, things, but it's part of it's frustrating, but it is what it is. Important documents to have. Kind of went over this. Again, property, life, car. Just know where the stuff is at. Be able to grab it with one go, with one hand, and a little rucksack and take it hopefully you don't need it, but, another little program to the Knoll Shores, is the Hurricane Good Neighbor Program, and this is done by the Knoll Shores Public Safety Auxiliary Team volunteers, which Ms. Martha is one of. If you decide to stay, we will, right before storm, 24 hours out, we'll set up a table and a phone at the public safety building. And if you're staying, we ask that you call this number, right there, I can leave it. But call that number right there, and we'll take a log of your name, your address, where you're at, and that you're gonna be in town.
And your next. And your next.
But we ask where you're relative. We have called that.
Yeah.
We're politically correct at the end. If you're zipping you up in a bag. But after, when the storm gives us a break, or the storm's passing, and we start getting back out on the street and trying to check on the town and see what's out there, we have addresses. We'll go down this list of addresses, check on those folks, make sure everything's cool, make sure everything's okay, and they're doing well. And that way we just know where our people are in town. But it's a super cool program. Curfews, at least we have to put on curfews. We're going to be in a state of emergency, and a curfew will be declared. I don't have a police officer here now. But this is where a little bit of what Eric touched on again. When the curfew's in place, people want to go out inside and see the hurricane, see the trees falling and stuff like that. You don't need to be walking around in the middle of a hurricane. But the big thing is for your safety. It's not like we're trying to pin you up in your house or your yard. Down power lines, down trees, limbs falling, things of that nature kill you quick. It's not the time to be out for a stroll. Plus, the one thing about Knoll Shores is we got a lot of sound front looters. Anybody that wants to loot or think they can take advantage of the situation, usually take a boat, get over here, kayak, whatever you want to do, they get over here. And it's easier for cops to stop people out there and check, that just being foolish out walking around, not somebody from Moorhead or something that's supposed to be here. So the curfew can be frustrating, but it's got a good reason behind it. Anybody got any questions real quick? I'll keep moving because we'll get to the final. I'll get to the town mark. Kind of a lot of what Eric was touching on, but we emphasize it for a reason. It's super important info to have. So what the town is doing in preparation for a storm, man sitting over at that table is making emails and phone calls, and we're making sure our equipment's ready to go. Fire department does that every morning, but we're making sure all our equipment's ready to go. Fire department's ready, Public Works. We're making sure our gas tanks are full, making sure our gas stations over here beside Town Hall are full. Backing up records, Town Hall admin's doing this, setting up emergency operations center, that's at the Public Safety Building, the fire department. The mayor, town manager, mayor is sitting right there, John Perlman, and town manager sitting over here, Mr. Kramer. They're attending county preparatory meetings. This is where the county gets together and decides their evacuation orders. They get together and decide their declarations, declaration of emergencies, things of that nature, and just trying to coordinate. Fire chief, who's me, now turned emergency manager, set up staffing for the event. My idea of staffing, I usually pull 2 shifts in, 2 full shifts at the station. I'll leave 1 shift off island. Worst case scenario, we're all killed in the box. There's another shift fireman out there. To come back and start doing things. What's that? In Florida, a couple times the tornado toward the AC and all. We've been doing this for a long time, but we could do this blindfolded probably. But you can't fail if you got a checklist. And we have a checklist that we go by. It's called our emergency operation plan. I'm not going to be able to do the entire plan, but this is just some of the major, some of the pages in the plan. And if you can read it, standby, decision, which is we're watching. Preparation, evacuation, the storm event, evaluation, how bad did we take a hit? Recovery, I'll get that in a second. And then immediate emergencies, which is life safety to us, making sure people are safe. Restoration and reconstruction, that's getting the town back on speed moving forward. Now, to each one of those points right there, each one of those items, there's a laundry list of checks that we go down. And we sit and we read them, and we'll go, yep, we got that, yep, we got that, yep, we got that, yep, we got that, we're good. We're still standing by. Most important, communications. Big on communications here, but throughout the entire time we're trying to prep the storm, we're trying to communicate with the public, put out emails, constant contacts, everything that we're doing, we're trying to, and everything that we're seeing with the hurricane, we're trying to put out, push out emails and messages to the public. Trying to keep, citizens informed, full-time residents, part-time residents, a lot of residents, from all for, Raleighs and things of that nature. How do we do this? We do it by several means. We do have a Town of Pownell Shores website. Definitely get on that and check that out. It's really cool. Town of Pownell Shores Facebook page, Town Manager's email list, and like Mr. Kramer mentioned, County Code Red system. Town Manager's email list is manager@townofpks.com. If you email him and say, hey, put me on the list, you will be on his listserv, and anytime he pushes out emails, you will get those. He does not just for hurricanes though, he does like all kinds of events, anything going on in Pownell Shores, he pushes out those emails to let everybody know, but it really is helpful during a hurricane storm event. The County Code Red system, I have links for it, but if you go on the cartercounty.gov, cartercountync.gov website, you'll see Code Red there. You can go in and put in your cell phone. And the Code Red system, if you're signed up for that, let's say you're traveling through Kansas and there's a tornado warning where you're at in Kansas, you'll be notified of that. It's not just East North Carolina, it'll tell you something bad is happening where you are because it's picking up your cell phone there and you need to be alerted. Kind of cool. Information flow, we do everything within our power to keep information going out to everybody, what we're seeing, what's going on. Julie, who is the assistant town manager, after Florence, she was riding around with a GoPro, making little YouTube videos and putting them up so people could see people that were still in Raleigh or off and not in town. They could see what town looked like. But we do our best. Sooner or later, we lose communications. It's always going to happen. You're not going to keep them up. If anybody wants magic book, let me know. Always looking for some kind of magic book to keep information flowing out. Also here, come a time when I'm going to close down operations of the fire department. Like out phase, we're going to hunker down just like everybody else is doing. We're going to ride out the storm. If we get a call during that time, for whatever reason, be it EMS or be it fire, we'll take a look at what's going on out there, and maybe we don't respond. If we deem it not safe enough to respond, we won't come out. What we'll do is we'll put that call on a log, and post-storm will go down that log and go to those calls. But they say crossing the bridge is usually like 50 mile an hour. There's really no set thing. You can always leave the island, but you can't come back on. Everybody says like 50 mile an hour, they shut down the bridge. It's not technically true, but going across that bridge in a fire truck at 50 mile an hour winds, a roller coaster, I don't care to do again. In an ambulance or a fire truck. It's a white knuckle ride, let's put it that way. We try to go out, we do try to go out as police are trying to go out and patrol and go find a tree down across the road. We try to slip out and clear the trees out. And we just clear a tree out enough to get a fire truck or ambulance down the road. This is what I was just talking about. Golden rule, crossing the bridge, 50 mile an hour winds. I don't go out, I don't have a wind gauge. I go out and see if it's 50 miles an hour or not. We kind of judge what we see before we send the truck out once we decide to shut No reason why I say evacuate, because there comes a time when we might not be able to get out and get to you. Storms past. Our priorities, like I say, always our priorities are life safety. The Hurricane Good Neighbor program is going to come into play. The medically fragile rescue will come into play. Hopefully they're involved in taking off. PD is always going to be out patrolling the streets. If trees are down on houses, possible victims in there while we're riding around, if we see a tree down through a house, we'll get out and go check and make sure there's nobody in there hurt. 911 calls, like I just said, that may be on the log that we didn't get a chance to answer, we're going to get those cleaned up. And any noticeable signs of distress. We see somebody sprawling out in front of the yard, we're probably gonna stop and check them. People's lives always come first and foremost, and the whole point of this presentation is about people's lives and saving lives. And the biggest way to save lives is leave the property conservation is next. Right when that storm ends, the county emergency manager is going to be jumping up and down, wanting a damage assessment from us, from everybody. So you'll start getting these phone calls or contacts of how much damage do you think you have? What's the dollar figure? Because that's how we get the help from the federal government. Barring a catastrophic hurricane event, Mayor of the Islands will start planning for letting reentry pass holders back onto the island. Fire department and phase 1 contractor will be clearing roadways for emergency vehicle access. Plans will begin for debris removal operations, phase 2 cleanup. I'll speak on these in just a second. And when folks are allowed back on the island, they will begin the process of their personal property. Phase 1, phase 2, just an info note. Phase 1 is a really fast phase where we just try to clear the roads off, try to get trees out of roads, try to get the roads swept off, and it just gets pushed to the right of way. Everything just gets pushed on the right of way. People get mad because we're pushing stuff in their yard, on the right of way in front of their house, but that's where it goes. But that's where it goes. And but that's pretty quick. We get that done within 72 hours usually. Or nothing catastrophic going on. Phase 2 is the real where the fun really begins. Brooks, and you got PTSD from this. But that's major debris removal. That's getting all this big debris out of the town. If anybody's been a town resident, especially after Florence, you've seen us working these trucks, the big Mad Max vehicles, we call them. The first time we did that was in Irene in 2011, and then I thought that was bad. I was here for 3 weeks straight, 15-hour days. And then Florence hit, and it was like a whole different animal. It was like driving down a hoop leaf, with just 2 big walls of debris on either side of the road. I can't remember how many months Florence took, but it took a while. But this is mainly brush debris. This can take a lot of time depending on how bad the storm was. Knoll Shores prides itself on being Tree City, USA, which is awesome. We have a lot of trees. But if you go back to like Corps of Engineers, they have a calculator how much debris town will generate depending on the tree cover. And like we're pretty high tier in that because we are Tree City, USA, we love our trees. But there are other categories besides the debris. Separate categories C and D, which is construction demolition debris, which is like housing stuff, sheds and things that are destroyed, any kind of building stuff. And then you have another one called white goods. A lot of times people lose their washers or dryers and things like that. They put them out by the road. So many different categories of that, but that's a big one. And phase 2 takes time. Just went over this stuff. The Hurricane Florence, I said, took 3 months, and it took every bit of that. But we got to do this a certain way. We got contracts in place, and we get reimbursed by FEMA. Miss Julie, the assistant town manager, works her magic and gets us this money back. But it can be millions of dollars that we get back. We have to do the debris removal the way FEMA wants it. Logistical nightmare. Life normal for an average storm. Except for the debris removal operations, I'll keep going. Most folks are getting their yards cleaned up. What do you say about people wanting to see who can have the golf course lawn before
race the heavy and just the nice one first.
Yeah, yeah. Everybody's trying to get their lawn hardiest first, you know, get the grass back and stuff. We see, yeah, people like the grass, but everything returns to normal except for ongoing everyday operations. This is what I put in the handout, just review notes, and I will get this out in constant contact. It's just a couple of slides, but really think about evacuating, have a plan to get out. There's husband and wife in town, who I won't mention, but love them to death. But the husband was like, I will never stay here again after Florence, because I think his wife like throwing up. But try to go and always have a plan. I like the way Eric put it, you know, have multiple ideas of where you're going to go. I tell people, do not stop. People go to Kinston, people go to New Bern. Definitely don't go to New Bern. Kinston's not a good idea either. That's the whole floodplain. When Matthew came up through the, you know, missed us totally nothing. Yeah. So it totally destroyed that floodplain area, interior. I tell people, man, about this time of year, you gotta go there. And possibly be on Tennessee side of them. But just go. And I know evacuations early, or they say evacuation in 48 hours. And in Carter County, I think that really should be extended out, you know, try, if you can possibly afford to get out of here earlier than 48 hours, to get out before that mark. Take your pets with you, or at least make sure they're took care of. Definitely do not use the category of the storm as a gauge. It's not a good predictor of the storm at all. I'm sure you got your vital documents. Have your re-entry pass. One is good as long as it, you know, own the home. Yeah, and once you get one, it's good forever until you sell the home. Then the new owner has to come in and get a new one. But if you own the home, it's good. There's folks in town, pardon me, probably have their original ones from 1960. Probably got stamped by John. But be sure that if you got medical issues, big one to us, if you got medical issues, make sure you're taken care of. Make sure you have your meds like you need them. Make sure that they have to be refrigerated. You are not here in a hurricane event. Or if you need oxygen, make sure you are not here during a hurricane event. If you stay, be prepared at least for 96 hours. I like Eric's Knoll to 7 days. Have a lot better idea. 96 hours is not going to cut it. Hurricane Good Neighbor Program, that's the PD duty sale. If you have special needs, sign up for the Carter County Medically Fragile Program. I always say that's a touchy one, because a lot of folks trying to help their neighbors out, and you know, broaching a medical subject with a neighbor can be touchy. But you know, at least make them aware of it best that you can. Be sure you're on our web, you know, check out our PKS website, the Facebook page. Fire department has a Facebook page too. Town Matters email listserv for current info. There's the website, there's Town Matters email, and there's the Facebook page. Again, I got handouts up there, and this will come out from listserv. So links continue to Carter County Emergency Services. If you go, there's the website there. You can write it down, check it out for yourself. But CarterCountyNC.gov. Click on Emergency Services. They have this tons of info about friendly hotels, public shelters, Code Red. Sign up for that. That's a good thing to have. Medically Fragile Registry form is there. We will have them at Public Safety Building as well. And just all around good info on preparedness. FEMA website is a great one. Ready.gov. That's a lot of info what you can do at your house. It's about personal preparation. AARP, tips and advice for seniors on disaster preparation is a good one. And these are those last two that I just put on there. That's the public shelters one in Carter County's emergency services. And then that's a cool one to check out if you got pets. Paul's got it, carteret.org. I'm going to dig into that one myself just because there's great info on there about pets and things. And I think it's like super helpful if you ended up in a situation to go to a shelter and couldn't take your pet. They can help. But that's about it for me. I tried to go through it about as quick as I could. Oh, there, sorry. That's National Hurricane Center, Noah, not Newport, Noah, right, Eric? But they got educational links there as well, tons of info. Like Eric saying, if you go on the Newport NOAA website, did you want to get pictures of? If you go on Newport NOAA's website or just NOAA's website, there's tons of information on there. When storms are out there, they keep posting tons of information on there. And it's a good way to keep up. You're seeing everything that we see. Seeing everything that we pay attention to. One big thing about rip currents, I'll hit rip currents real quick before I get off. Like Eric said, the storms out there in the Atlantic, it's pushing swells to the coast. From thousands of miles away, it's pushing swells up. The surfers all keep up with that. Folks will probably be out there in the swells surfing. But for average people, yeah, you come down here. I'll say anytime you come to the beach. You know, people think that they're good in the water. People always say, "Oh, you're a swimmer." Yeah, okay. But you get people from all like Ohio's, Red Sea and Ohio license plates. I'm picking on Ohio. But you know, you should always be careful when you're going in the ocean. The rip currents are there. You can't always see them. And you should know how, and you should always have some kind of flotation with you, especially if you're visiting here for a week, you're down here for a couple of days, or you're a weekend warrior coming down here. Always have some kind of flotation. You get those boogie boards at any of the grocery stores for like 10 or 15 bucks. Better yet, a life jacket. Whether you have the little boogie board with you in the water, if you're by yourself, you should, or if somebody has it up on the shoreline, that can take it and try to get to you. You know, have some kind of flotation. I can't stress that enough. Goes back to one big point I want everybody to think about. It's like bad things happen to good people. I saw a guy, I think Brooks was there, like he come down here with a business party. His first time he ever seen the Atlantic Ocean. 5 minutes after putting his toes in the Atlantic Ocean, he was dead. Period. Nothing. Had a good time, happy, laughing, went in the water, came out dead. It happens, you know, have that kind of mentality that, you know, what's going to happen if all of a sudden I look out there and somebody's crashing or whatever, or when your family members crash, whatever, you're going to go try to help. I get it, you shouldn't. But if you go out, use that flotation. So always have flotation with you on the beach. We even put them up, life jackets and boogie boards at the beach accesses trying to help. Some of our HOAs put up a life ring at their sites, their private sites, but they put up a life ring so people have a way and there's flotation nearby. If you're going to go out there and try to be a rescuer, you better have flotation or you'll probably be dead too. Yeah, definitely.
You'll be good here, the kids are in the water.
The kids in the winter, you're going to go.
Son to get them.
I can name all 4 right now. But so have flotation goes to beach and play. Hurricanes out there, I can't stress it enough. Like Eric said, Lorenzo's 2,000 miles off in the Atlantic, pushing up a swell, rip currents hit us hard, you know, and a lot of people die. So when hurricanes out there is extra special. Just because we have yellow flags, don't mean, so we never put a green flag up. People wonder why, because we say we should always have caution when you go in the water. But people, this is a big one for Noah too. For like so many times, the rip current forecast is red. And we put a red flag, and it looks like a lake out there. This could be one of those hurricane situations. It's a nice swell coming. We will get called. People will bust us out because we got red flags. So it's party out there. It's like a lake. That rip is still there. The rip is still there. The swell's still coming on shore. The rip's still there. But so we see that a lot. So just be careful out there with the rip currents. The hurricanes out there, they're there. They're always there. And if you're going to go play on the beach, you got to have kids out there. Always have flotation. Always have some kind of flotation with you. That's it for me, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
You can reach me there. Does have my phone number on there at the station. And take a little time, think about what you're doing, think what the plan is. Please back to me.
Chief, I just think I think it needs to be said that your department, over the last 5 years with all the notification and after we had those deaths, has done a phenomenal job with information and putting up the flags and working on the system. Jerry's done a great job. I think we should just be so thankful for all that effort. And the island has really come across. So when you come over the bridge, you should know something about currents and so forth.
I'll tell you one last,
So thank you.
one last one on recurrence. I'll tell you the story. And this is something, you know, chew on a little bit. So, it was about red flags for telling people to stay out of the water, because I think it was a hurricane out there and we were telling people to stay out of the water. And it got to be a big thing. When a news reporter came down here to tell me that, you know, asked me questions about telling people they couldn't go in the water. I tell them you can, but tell them you might not be able to come get you. But he's like, what do you tell a family of, the big thing to that was, he said, what do you tell a family of 4 that spent thousands of dollars on a week's vacation, come down here and play in the ocean if they can't go in there? I said, all right, let me flip that on you a little bit. I said, what do you tell that family of 4 that came down here as a family of 4 and is now going home a family of 3 or a family of 2?
Exactly. Be cautious. Respect it.
And I've sent plenty back. I'm not saying, I mean, over the years being on song, I've seen plenty of families go back this one or 2.
Thank you.
Jason,
Sir.
are you doing a beach safety class July 2nd?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Oh, no, go ahead. Yes, Brooke.
July 2nd, Iron Steamer.
Our steamer, wet life jackets there to give out. It's on the beach, little program that we do about water safety. We'll put on a demonstration, launching the jet ski, putting a swimmer out there. Like I say, giving away life jackets, which the life jackets last year actually did save a life the next day. The dad and the kid had their life jacket on that we had given them. He had gotten a life jacket. We were giving kids out. He had gotten a life jacket for himself and was out there playing with his boy, and they were caught in a rip. They were pulled out beyond the breakers, but the wife's up there reading the book. She ain't paying attention. They're out there playing, but they had life jackets. If they had that life jacket on, they'd go through the situation.
We got a question from the online audience. Both of us can kind of take this. So the question was, what side of the house could have more damage, sound side or ocean side? Really could be either, and you could but we've seen damage, sound side issues, ocean side, so either one.
It depends how it pushes. But if the storm comes in right, it pushes the water in the inlet, southwest, push it in. And a lot of times, that's where we will see all the dock damage. On the interior, you'll see people with the yards flooded on the sound side. Or comes in a little bit different. That's when you get the big breakers on the beach and we lose a bunch of beach, but the town's got to kind of help mitigate that. Yeah, it depends on how it hits. Again, a dynamic situation.
So we really appreciate everybody coming. I don't see any more questions on the online or in person. As you leave, be sure to grab brochures. We've got hurricane guides from North Carolina that kind of go.
Thank you very much.
I got a few things to make it quick.
Sorry.
Anybody once a month go for a little survival trip where they want to just be out in the middle of nowhere? So what they were talking about was survival of the hurricane, 4 days to 7 days. So that's not just like the regular luxuries you're used to. So it's not really that fun. We talked about electricity. People think that if they have a generator, they're good. One of the things on this island is all septic. So if that's flooded, if you got standing water, you can't flush your toilets. There's nowhere for it to go. So it backs up from the drains, not really that fun. Your cell phones, they can be charged, but when Wi-Fi goes down, just to pull up a map to see where the hurricane is, you can't do that. You'll get a lot of messages saying the circuits are busy and you can't call out. Once everybody goes to their cell phone instead of Wi-Fi, it's hard to communicate. So with all those things, food being readily available, you can't go to the store, you can't get that. To me, it sounds like a good time to take a vacation. Go stay at a nice Airbnb somewhere, enjoy those creature comforts. Even if you stay here, one of the things I've seen is the gas stations. Everybody wants their generator to keep running. People get ugly. When they want AC, when they want things, they'll fill trash bags with gasoline because they want to get as much as they can. Things don't work out good. So if you can be gone for all that and come back, it's the way to go. Anyway.
Thank you.
Look.